This is the Marketing for Learning podcast, the only podcast in the world that's guaranteed to help learning and development professionals enhance their skills, capabilities, and knowledge when it comes to marketing for learning. I think we can safely say that marketing for learning is a thing. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Marketing for Learning podcast. You are joined by me, Ashley Hinchcliffe, and the ever wonderful Hannah Clark here.
Hey.
Oh, you're getting spoiled, actually. We're on the podcast together a lot these days. It's almost like less of a novelty now.
Yeah, I'm also just want to say congratulations for getting your name right first time.
I nearly got it wrong on the call that we had earlier, didn't I?
You're really struggling with your married name, aren't you?
It's not. I'm not doing my best with it.
Sinclair and Wadhams are still in us somewhere.
Yeah.
Hinchcliffe
I mean,
and Clark.
to be honest, I do understand why we don't record together all the time based on the 5 minutes we just wasted laughing at the beginning of this session. So
I am going to post it on LinkedIn. If you are curious, go watch our LinkedIn for the next week because it was peak stupidity.
Please don't show me licking the yogurt.
You don't want everyone to see you licking your yogurt.
I actually don't care. I don't care.
And to be honest, it's been 30 seconds of us in the actual recording and we're talking drivel again.
Cheers, you're welcome. So look, okay, we are on episode 5. Again, that took us a while to figure out what episode we were on. How? We were there. Hannah edited the last one. She couldn't even remember that we were on episode 5. So we are on episode 5. 5.
Ashes, for those listening, raising both hands, which is therefore 10. So I worry about her educating her young children on how to count.
That's 2 5s.
It looks like 10 to me.
10. It's quick maths. So obviously we've talked a lot about data and insights, getting to know our businesses and our people, really delving into that. We've also explored how we can get buy-in from our stakeholders using some of that data and really build our internal brands and actually get people to think that we're valuable because we are. They just don't know it. Then I talked to Georgie Cook about effective learning design, building our products for success, really focusing on how we can build out learning experiences that are designed for the people that are supposed to use them. And then last week we chatted shit about technology. And it wasn't all that shit, but we talked a lot about, how L&D is very well intentioned, but the infatuation with technology sometimes puts us in a bad place because in many cases we're not really solving the root causes of our issues and we are replacing like for like and it's not really solving the problems. So this episode is obviously focused on arguably our bread and butter, marketing for learning. It'd be weird if we didn't know what to do on this one. But we're going to talk about how you actually change a great product into something that makes people want it. From a great product to a must-have. So the caveat at the beginning of this episode is that we're going to work on the assumption that you've done all the things that we've told you in episodes 1 through 4. You've done the research, you're aligned to the business, you've built or refined your learning offering so that it's actually appropriate for, meeting business goals and also relevancy and context for your audience. So that product's really hitting the right notes on both of those sides. Now you got a great product. What the heck do you do with it, right? Well, yeah, okay, obviously we're gonna say marketing, but where do we kind of start with all of that? I mean, that's not a unusual scenario that you've seen, right? People build amazing learning experiences all the time. The intentions are good.
Then what?
But then nothing happens.
So I think mostly if we need to make this abundantly clear as well, you can build what you think is a great learning product. When we're saying you've built a great learning product, we mean you've gone out, you've done that market research piece. You've made sure it actually aligns to the business goals and it aligns to your audience's goals. So I'm assuming you've done that as well. You've done that piece, you understand who your audience is. The then what then? Then what then? That's a lot of thens in a sentence. But the next step for me, or the first step when it comes to the marketing piece, is really honing in on the what's in it for me.
Yeah.
What is your audience going to get from this phenomenal learning product? No, it's not a great learning experience. No, it's not bite-sized learning. No, it's not anything that actually has the word learning in it. That's not what's in it for me. For Joe Bloggs that works in your organisation, he's not thinking about learning. He's not thinking about L&D, development opportunities, e-learning, anything that we're talking through day in, day out. They're not thinking about it. So my first step, and actually I did a consultancy session yesterday doing exactly this, is to sit down with your personas and work out what is the benefit for them. Why should they care? What are they actually going to get out of it? And I think people, when they think of the marketing step, want to jump straight into, oh, but we can do a vlog, or we can do a webinar, or we can do some influencer videos. And actually, none of that matters if you haven't got the what's in it for me right. Really understanding what it is that your audience are going to get from getting involved with your learning opportunity. So that is my first step every single time. Answer the what's in it for me. We talk about it so much on this podcast, but it's that important, and that's why we talk about it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, this all boils down to positioning, right? So, and that's like probably one of the most crucial aspects of marketing that's just really broadly overlooked in a lot of marketing functions as well as L&D. I think this is where maybe our skills gaps in the learning function are particularly visible, I suppose, when it comes to marketing, because there is this, okay, I want to market my learning products. I'll send some emails. We do the obvious things, but there's the lack of kind of strategic substance behind all of that, which is really what's the limiter. So yeah, you can go and send some emails, but if you don't really know why you're sending those emails, we've talked about this at length. If the audience isn't going to understand how it benefits them, how it pertains to their roles, how it's relevant, if it just talks about features and stuff that's happening, it's probably not going to really kind of hit the right notes. So the things that I want to make sure that we cover today is very much about positioning, right? So how do we make learning impossible to ignore? How do we alter our messaging depending on our audience? Because again, that's something I see people grapple with all the time. They don't understand that you can have a different hook for different audiences. You can have different benefits for different audiences. This is okay. This is exactly what we have to do. And obviously kind of crafting messaging, things like copywriting and stuff, and we can talk through a little bit more, maybe some examples from things that we've done. And then obviously what things we should be thinking about when it comes to marketing strategy and how we effectively market internally. Again, this shouldn't be news to any of you who've listened to us at length, but hopefully it's a bit of a kind of catch-all of the last 100+ episodes in terms of how should we be doing marketing in our learning functions, working on the assumption that we have a really awesome product to work with. So let's talk about positioning then. So you've obviously said what's in it for me, and that's crucial, right? People need to understand the benefits over the features, right? They don't care about microlearning. They care that it doesn't interrupt their day job because they can consume that information in such a short period of time. It doesn't matter how awesome your product is. It doesn't matter. If it's the most AI-riddled piece of tech in the world and it's cutting edge, if that doesn't relate to what people need or think that they need, then you're in a difficult place, and you're gonna find that there is that disengagement and that dissonance between what you wanted and what you got, right?
And I think, in my experience, the reason why L&D struggle with this so much is because we are so embedded with learning. We are only thinking about learning. It's all we think about. And of course it is. It's our job to do. It's a task of empathy. And I say this a lot when we're doing the training courses. You really have to be empathetic with your audience and try to put yourself in their shoes. Do they care that it's bite-sized? Nah. Do they care that it's an e-learning module? Definitely not. Do they care that it's face-to-face? Some of them will say yes. Probably not. Again, they're not actually that interested in that. What they do care about is the benefits that you're giving to them. And when we do talk about the value proposition canvas, we talk about gain receivers?
Gain creators.
I blanked there. Gain creators and pain relievers. Literally brain fart. But what are you giving to them that they haven't already got that's benefiting their life? And what are you taking away that's solving a pain point for them? That is where we should be at. Not, oh yeah, but they should care that it's bite-sized because they moan that the courses are too long. So I think one of the biggest things for me when it comes to positioning and getting the marketing part of the process right is that empathy. Really put yourself in their shoes and think, hey, if I wasn't working in learning, would I really care about any of this stuff? The answer will be no.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know, the crux of it is people are intrinsically motivated to meet their own needs. And so they're probably not going to engage with stuff that doesn't benefit them in one way or another. And obviously benefits can be really different depending on the product, depending on the experience. And so what a perceived benefit is different for everybody. But this is why we do personas, to understand some of that a little bit more deeply and hopefully find some opportunities to engage with those benefits. But people are going to focus on exactly what you said, things that solve their problems, things that alleviate pain, things that make their lives easier, particularly if we're looking in the context of a learning product or a learning experience. You know, there's got to be the answer to that. Why? Why would I give you my time? I don't understand why you want me to do this 2-hour course on whatever, because I don't understand how it pertains to what I do. I don't understand how it benefits me.
And there's also that element that even if it does, why do they care about what you're doing? So that meeting I had yesterday that I spoke about was about generative AI, and it was for a tech company. They all love Gen AI. They love it. They want to be involved. Some of the learning is far too junior for the people that are actually in the business. They've surpassed what the learning's saying in terms of the straight-laced learning, so like the e-learning and the face-to-face training. But actually there's communities involved. There's best practice communities. There's things that people can get involved with. So if we're just looking at learning and saying, oh, it's going to teach you everything you need to know about Gen AI, your audience might be really interested in Gen AI. It might be really relevant to their role, but they might be thinking, well, I don't need to learn from you because I already know all of this. I know more than you could tell me anyway. So we need to be thinking really deeply about what our product offering actually is. If you are literally just saying, here's some e-learning courses, that's probably not going to move the needle for very many people at all.
No, definitely not. And I'll always remember I did some discovery with a client. Might have even been the same client. Not 100% sure. And I always remember someone saying to me, I finally found some stuff that I was looking for. I looked through like the 100 courses that were available on the subject that I was looking to learn about. And then I spent about 45 minutes working through something that I'd chosen, only to really find that I knew everything that was in there. And it felt like a complete waste of my time because there was no kind of curation from that learning function to say, okay, this is like beginner, this is intermediate, this is advanced. Like, the cherry picking shouldn't be down to the person because they don't really know what all of your learning content means. You know, it's not the same as Netflix where you can read a quick synopsis and go, oh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not the same. So, we need to focus on how we position learning as well as, obviously, again, this comes back to the product piece. So we're not going to delve into that because your product's brilliant. You've done all this work. There's all this curation that's been done and there's really great pathways and lots of really relevant stuff. We need to focus on value propositions, right? The value, like you said, the value prop, but value-driven positioning. Because I'll tell you what, so like you might say the same about the clients that you've worked with, or what the general consensus that I see in L&D is, it's just a mindset that's so there. Learning is something we all should be doing. It's very good for you to learn. And why don't you want to learn? Because learning helps you evolve and progress. And there's nothing like tangible to latch onto that. Like, yes, that's not incorrect, but that's just, there's not enough for anybody to connect with that notion. But that's kind of what a lot of people use.
And I've lost count of the amount of times that I've been on calls with clients and prospects and people in the training courses. They go, yeah, but people should want to learn.
Oh, God.
Okay, great, but they don't. Whether they should want to or they do want to, I'm telling you, they don't. They don't think about it. They don't care about it. They're just trying to get through the day-to-day role. We need to find an answer, a value prop, a benefit, a answer to the what's in it for me that directly addresses how we're going to help them do that thing they're already doing. It's not learning. That's not the thing they're already doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we want to have some like quick top tips for positioning, then make sure you're answering the what's in it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Always make sure you're using your personas to tailor that messaging, to identify those pain points, to really hone in on the solutions to their problems that you're solving with your learning. It isn't like, oh, this learning thing's going to be fantastic. Like, you have to have substance behind it. Like, oh, we've got a new leadership development program. Is not the same as, you know, here's how you can thrive as a manager, even when you feel like a fake. You know, like, that's a really different message again. So, right, you know, it's got to be a solution. Not something mandatory, not an obligation, a solution for them. That's the only way they're going to engage with the product, first and foremost, right? So if we miss that positioning piece and we just go straight for the transactional emails of, hey, here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's no surprise that engagement is low.
And it's a bit of like a tangible, like more of a how-to tip. Don't necessarily try to do that by yourself. So in the workshop that I did yesterday, there were 6 people, all in the L&D team, all could have done it by themselves and probably wouldn't have sat there for a very long time trying to work it out. But all of them having their different ideas and opinions and really putting themselves in their persona shoes, we got there a lot quicker. It was an hour or so, and then at the end of it, we had a really clearly defined value prop statement almost of like, why should they care? Be collaborative and work with people on this. I think sometimes, and you and I know in our roles as well, like when we're working on client projects separately, we often have to come to each other and bounce ideas off each other. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think sometimes people can get overwhelmed with actually answering the what's in it for me, working out their positioning, defining their value prop, and it infinitely becomes easier if you're doing it with somebody else.
Yeah. And just take off that learning lens too, right? Like, take that step back away from it being learning and look at it objectively as a product. Right, a product. So I think that that's really crucial, because obviously whenever we say like do personas and stuff, like ask the questions, ask the right questions, and that doesn't mean just asking them about their learning and stuff. So we need to get out of that echo chamber a little bit, and we need to, you know, be a bit more objective in terms of reflecting on, like you said, it's a task of empathy. Who are these people? What do they need? Mm-hmm. So so that's great. So we focused on positioning. Now that we've done our personas, we've got our value prop in place, we need to kind of develop the messaging around our marketing efforts if we were doing a campaign, right? You know, what messaging, what does messaging even mean to you? What would you define that as?
Oh, that's a very big question.
Put her on the spot, haven't I?
It's a big question. Because I see so many people go the wrong way around it. Because people instantly try to come up with like a tagline and like that punchy, witty phrase, and they're using all these different tactics. And actually your message is quite a big thing, and especially in a lot of L&D functions where you can't manipulate the brand too much. You are prescribed. Your message is even more important because it's how you're communicating absolutely everything you're putting across. So for me, your message is that key purpose and the way you're communicating it with your audience. It's not enough to just say, oh, my message is my tagline.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, if you think, so I just recently did the brand house for Mass, and I certainly didn't start with our tagline. You know what I started with? I started with our, funnily enough, our tone of voice and our value pillars. You know, who are we as a business, and what do we stand for, and how do we talk about ourselves? That then helped me kind of frame quite a lot of other things around, okay, where, you know, again, using the personas that we've got, what sort of messaging do we think is going to really connect with people? That then drew out a tagline and other things. So I think we have to, it isn't just like, let's come up with a tagline, which is learning opportunities everywhere, right?
Yep.
You know, again, that's really generic. And if I see any of this sort of stuff typically being done, in my opinion, I need to stop saying in my opinion, by the way, because I listened to the podcast and I was like, why do I keep on saying in my opinion? I'm saying it. It's obviously my opinion. a lot of it sounds very trite, or cliched, or like I've seen it 100 times before. Maybe I'm in a unique position where I have seen it a lot, but I think if it feels overdone, if it's something like ChatGPT would spew out, then it's probably overdone. If it's in the echo chamber. So we need to get away from generic messaging. We need to use our value prop. We need to use our personas. We need to use the what's in it for me and those problem statements and those solutions and that value ridden language to actually understand how we can communicate with these people. Yeah, it isn't just that tagline. I totally agree.
And when it does come to actually getting the writing done and actually putting it out there, I think my best tip, and it actually is something I saw a clip from Ed Sheeran, of all people, about when he's writing songs and he just writes and writes and writes and writes until something good comes out. That's the kind of process you need to follow. Write down that really basic, boring value prop that you've come up with, and then just keep iterating on it and keep writing everything. And I genuinely mean write everything. If it's on a Miro board or something like online, if it's on a piece of paper, because you will end up like 10 lines down the road and go, oh, actually, but if that added to that, it works really well. But I think when it comes to actually getting your messaging right, just start. Blank page syndrome will hold you back. So just start writing stuff. You can refine, you can edit. You're not putting it out today. You're not putting out your shitty first draft. You have the time to edit and refine it. So just get it out with your fingertips and start writing stuff down.
I was going to literally say again, you took the words right out of my mouth. But I was going to say, go and listen. I think one of the earlier episodes we did around the shitty first draft, I think I entertained myself a little bit too much with that one because I said the word shit loads or something. And I was like, oh, it's so funny. No one cares, actually. So, yeah, I totally agree. Putting pen to paper. Copywriting is a skill and it is a practiced skill as well. And you're not going to get any better at it by not writing, right? But I think there's other things and stuff that we talk about in the strategic marketing course around evoking emotions, right? Big one. We know people aren't going to connect with stuff unless there's some resonance with them, if there's some sort of emotional connection or driver. We need to focus on things like storytelling, user stories. How can we bring these ideas to life? How can we really bring a pain point or a challenge that they have into something tangible and very real for them? That can help us develop our hook, but that's what we need to be thinking about when we're building out messaging, How do we make it relevant for people? How do we evoke emotion? And if you have that research and you have those personas and you have your value props, you should be able to answer that with some thinking, right? This shouldn't just be a wave my finger in the air. Oh, I'm going to come up with a new phrase for learning at work week. No, we're going to go a little bit deeper than that because if you followed the process from the beginning, as we've said, you should just know this stuff. Maybe not entirely, but there should be some gut feels based on all of the research that you've done. That's a good gut instinct.
And I can't put into words how productive the conversation yesterday was. And I promise this wasn't planned. Sheer coincidence. Client booked it in and now we're recording this. But we sat there with our personas and it was like, right, so how would... Let's stick with Lydia because we always use Lydia when we're doing examples of personas. How would Lydia feel in this situation? Seriously, would she be annoyed about that? And we really empathise. We put ourselves in her shoes. And it was just infinitely easier to come up with a really compelling message by having that persona there and really putting ourselves in her shoes. If you haven't done the groundwork, you're going to find it hard and you're going to end up with those generic messages that aren't going to resonate with anybody. And like you just said there, like another catchy phrase for learning at work week, like it's not going to make the impact that you want it to or that we know marketing for learning can have.
Yeah. So, we're talking about strategic foundations here, right? I think we'll get on to the components of a campaign in a bit, but, the big thing that I want us to move away from as people functions, learning professionals, whatever, is this kind of singular mind when it comes to communications as well. Campaigns need to last longer than a couple of days or a week. Campaigns are long-term multi-channel engagements that are designed to move people through an entire phase from awareness through to conversion / doing your shit. Maybe even loyalty if you adhere to the ADL model. There's another episode on that somewhere, which we will include in the show notes.
So I think also, while we're talking about personas and coming up with the messaging, I've had, obviously, because I run the strategic marketing course, I've had people say to me, well, I have to do something that appeals to everybody because it's discrimination if I don't. I'm leaving people out. I'm not catering to the whole market. What's your response to that, Ash?
Well, I think you saw my face. I would argue that if you have a good marketing strategy, your overall strategy for, say, over a year would seek to target the majority of your audience, but maybe you're not going to hit every single person with every campaign that you do or every message that you do, because if you attempt to do that in an attempt of an inclusion, you're essentially going to exclude everybody. This isn't DEI. We're not focusing on making people feel left, including people in that truest sense of the word. This is about using our research to build out audience profiles focused on how we can influence behavior. That is what marketing is. So if you remove that personalization piece, you weaken your ability to target people. You weaken your ability to influence and persuade. You water down and dilute any messaging that you just created, because if you try and catch everybody, you'll kind of catch nobody.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I've said as well. I just, as we're in this moment, I know there would be somebody listening thinking, well, I need to cater to everybody. And sure, you can cater to everybody, but you need to think about each of your personas and bring that together. And that's quite a hard task, but it's absolutely possible. We've done it with many of our clients. The Capgemini campaign that I did last year, was it even the year before now? That was a complete case study in the fact that we had to target everybody, but we personalised it based on their personas, their wants, their needs, their fears, their pain points. And it worked because we put the effort in to actually identify who we were targeting, and then actually did campaign elements to work alongside that.
I would argue as well that there is unlikely to be a majority of learning experiences that are universal across the workforce. So part of L&D's obsession with job titles as personas is really due to the fact that we are developing learning experiences that are relevant to people's roles. So I can't think of, barring like soft skills, and I'm not going to unpack the difficulty of building soft skills and how that's typically managed with off-the-shelf solutions and quite problematic because they're not relevant, blah, 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 blah. We're trying to personalize our learning experiences already, so why wouldn't we personalize our marketing to support the personalized learning experiences? So I don't think that trying to market to everybody is a good tactic. It isn't going to work. Like, even like, I'm trying to think of like a universal product. And I mean, there really isn't one, because, like Coca-Cola probably doesn't target children. Apple, like, there's a lot of like bigger brands that still will have segments that they work with. But L&D is the same, right? Like, you do leadership and management programs. That's not for everybody.
Yeah. I think, well, I've actually encountered quite a lot of L&D teams over the last year that are really pushing, and leadership's for everyone. So there'll be people listening to you going,
building core leadership skills, fine. I get that makes sense. But again, I think it's aspirational to think that everybody in your organization wants everything that you're creating either. Like,
and I think that's, if I go back to the Gen AI example with Capgemini that we did a few years ago, their business objective was to have everyone upskilled on this new technology. Great. That's the business objective. They had this catalogue that had something for everybody. What we then did, might work so well, is that we didn't market everything to everyone. We really thought about the personas, and it was like, okay, so actually if somebody's completely fresh, has never heard of Gen AI, they do need that introductory module. So apparently, I was about to say apparently I can't talk today. I promise I'm sober. I promise I'm not. I wish I was. Anyways, so we deliberately had a message that would appeal to those people that were really new and were really new to this topic. Then we had different messaging that was targeting different people, all based on their personas. And we almost ended up in this like matrix situation that we had their personas and we had this different level of proficiency. And we pulled out the messages that worked the best and had the strongest message that was going to hook people in and get them involved. We didn't at any one point just say, go to the Gen AI campus, bye. Because that wasn't actually creating that impact. Nobody wanted the whole campus.
No, of course not. So the whole point of all of this is to cut through the noise, right? Positively disrupt is my new favorite turn of phrase. We know that our workers are our people. I don't really like the term worker. Makes me think of worker bees. Hive mind. So we know that our people are inundated with messages, and it's really hard to get attention in the organization anyways because there's just so much noise and so much going on. So if we want like a snowflake's chance in hell of even getting our comms seen, we need to do this stuff because it is the only way to even get people to open your email or read your post on Slack or, I don't know, look at the sign that you have in the office on the screen in the lift or whatever, right? Like, if we don't think about our messaging and we don't think about our positioning before we even build out our campaign assets and things like that, even if people see it, they're never going to see it. Like, they'll ignore it, right? That's not for me. I'm not going to even see that. So, like, this isn't just like a folly. If you really want you want your products to be successful, this is just what has to be done in order to ensure that. It is not, you can't just guess this stuff. It's just not going to work if you do. And if you are, you again, what I tend to see again is this is all overlooked, and then we just get into that. We have a new course, like these reminder type emails, like transactional emails is what I call them. Like, here is a thing, you enjoy it. But there is nothing for anybody to connect with there. There is no emotional driver. It's repetitive. It's dull. You know, we're not trying to annoy people.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you got compliance stuff that comes to them. We can't do anything about that. Right? They'll open those emails because their boss will get pissed off at them if they don't. What's going to make them open your emails? You know, and that's what we have to really think about before we start thinking about, oh, I want to do lots of cool videos and stuff. Cool, but maybe your audience is never in a place where they're going to watch video. You know, before you do any of that, figure out what's going to actually make sense for them. What's going to trigger emotions, right?
And I feel like if you don't do this bit that we're just talking about, the messaging, the triggering emotions, that you can tick every single box in the campaign process. You can create the best videos. You can make sure it's going out as often as possible. If it's not hitting the right notes, it's not going to work. Like, it's just not. You could be John Lewis putting out the Christmas advert, that kind of budget. If it's rubbish, it's rubbish. People are going to ignore it. You have to really do this bit before you dive straight in with the bit that I think a lot of L&D see as a fun bit.
Yeah, the shiny bit, right? But this is what makes the shiny bit effective. And there is, you know, the evidence is already there in what is already being done. We know that our comms is being ignored. We know that we're getting very minimal or, you know, underwhelming engagement with our learning offering. That's not an accident. That's because of this. That's because of our substandard products. That's because of our lack of audience research. So again, this is why this series is here, because all of these things play a very, very crucial role in actually getting our learning products used and, hopefully achieving that ultimate goal of business impact. So this stuff has to happen before you start developing a campaign. If you are literally saying, we're going to go build a learning campaign, and then you start thinking about what emails to send and what you're going to make it look like and stuff, you stop. Go back a few steps, right? Make sure you have your personas. Make sure that you've done your value prop. Make sure you have that value statement language in place. Make sure you're very clear on your persona's pain points, because that's going to be the stuff that's going to come out. That's going to identify your hooks. That's going to help you identify emotional drivers, all of that lovely stuff. Once you've done that, then you can start to look at what makes a really interesting attention-grabbing campaign. I can't speak either, it's contagious. What makes it... It's actually vodka. Wouldn't be my drink of choice. Don't know why I said vodka. So I think the key for campaigns is all of that stuff first. So if we're doing a campaign with a client, they don't hire us and we just come up with some email subject lines and stuff. We do all of the things that we've just described. We go and talk to the business. We go and talk to their employees. We build out personas. We build out a value prop. Maybe we do messaging and brand if that's needed. It usually is, but sometimes the client won't let us. But we'll usually, if they don't, I usually still do some sort of messaging within the campaign instead, even though we can't affect the brand. And then we would start looking at what we do within the campaign itself, right? That's when we can, yeah, cool. But that's the majority of your campaign strategy, actually. Isn't, what are we going to send and when? It's actually all of the stuff that we've already talked about. It isn't the snazzy videos and stuff. But let's talk about what makes attention-grabbing learning campaigns. You and I have both developed lots of great learning campaigns for L&D clients. One you've done has won awards. Obviously, the Decra one won an award as well. We have some substance and some experience here. So I definitely have a few commonalities that I would say sit across the board, or I guess standard best practices that we would always have in our campaigns. Is there stuff that you would always say, this needs to be part of a campaign, or would you like me to start?
I've got a few ideas of the tactical execution that I think works very well across the board. I'm going to caveat everything I say, though, with that doesn't mean go and just do this in your organisation without that research piece. Influencers are probably my favourite marketing tactic for a learning campaign. I don't care if you call them influencers, champions, advocates, whatever they are. Getting that voice
evangelists.
Of customer. Oh, that's a
that
big
was in
one.
HubSpot. I marked an alumni as evangelist today. I was like, ooh.
I want to know who you marked as an evangelist. Anyways, I'm not going to digress. There is just something about the human psyche that we believe people more than we believe a brand. And when it comes to internal marketing, which is what we're doing, that's even more important. Because if I get an email from the head of learning saying, you will really enjoy this program, you should go and take it, it's going to make you 10 times more productive, enjoy.
Learning is an opportunity.
I'm literally going to be thinking, well, of course you would say that. You're the head of learning. You've got an ulterior motive. Of course you'll be doing it. If it's a colleague, they've got no vested interest in sharing this message with me. They've got no vested interest in actually telling me this. I'm going to believe it a bit more. And I have seen phenomenal impact with that. More so when they're video based. So when it's a selfie video and it's actually somebody's face, because then you have that curiosity of like, oh, what's Hannah going on about? I want to watch that video. Then she's telling you something that you believe more because it's coming from your colleague. That works really well. But if you do work in an organisation where maybe you can't share video very well, or you don't have colleagues that are willing to get on camera, testimonials and quotes and things like that are just so beneficial and have been the backbone of a lot of the campaigns I've done for that reason.
Yeah. And I think the reason that stuff works so well is authenticity. So again, those kind of under-polished, you can stand up and go turn your light on if you want. Hannah works in an office where when you sit for, well, I guess about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, if you don't move and the sensor's quite far away, the light turns off. So we're often be on
even if
calls.
I got as handsy as I possibly could while talking, I'm too far away from the sensor. Handsy.
Right. Oh my. So video is authentic anyways, great. But that lack of fabrication behind it, so, you know, a selfie video that's quite unedited, that's quite natural, that it feels like, they've done that off their own back. You know, there's not this kind of polished corporate message that sits around it. So, like, if you are going to do that, the less you can mess around with them, the better, in my opinion. And obviously, we know social proof is crucial. Again, we've talked about social proof at length, and it's a vital component of modern marketing strategies. That's, again, we just got asked today to do a review on G2 Crowd because social proof's important. People want to hear from other people who've used your product, and they will believe them more than you, brand person, learning manager, saying, this is mint, go and do it. You know, I think there's some other things that are really, really important for me. Multi-channel, just a must. You know, we cannot just do a single channel, i.e. email. It's even with clients of mine where we've had very limited social channels. I mean, one client, in fact, the client you did the stuff with yesterday, they don't have access to email at all. That's just not, internal comms holds the keys to that. They cannot send any emails. They can send more like segmented stuff, but like en masse employee emails are out of the question.
Can't even do the segmented stuff anymore, even.
Oh, FML.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we did the campaign ideas for them, there had to be some much more creative ways about how we interact with their audiences and how we get attention. And so multiple channels is crucial. We need to be seen, you know, if we're going to use an external brand's example, we want to be seen on the billboards and in the tube and on the telly. And does anyone listen to the radio?
I do.
On your social media. I do too. Scott Mills is on radio too now and I love it. And now I listen to radio too because I'm old. So that multi-channel piece is really crucial, I think, and it's not to be overlooked. And do not skimp on activating people as channels as part of your marketing campaign. Getting managers to understand, you know, massive gap in their knowledge in terms of what you're doing in L&D, how it relates to them as managers, but also those conversations that they can then have with their teams. They're a really crucial piece, and we need to activate those people and educating them in a different way to the rest of our campaign. So don't overlook people either. And the other one for me is more, I guess, like behavioral science stuff. So FOMO, you know, again, I did a whole episode on behavioral science. So it's almost like a catch-all for a lot of our other episodes. But, you know, using FOMO, using urgency, getting people connected with stuff, but tweaking on that behavioral science piece. You know, we know this stuff works. Is why it's being used. Why are things priced at $9.99 instead of £10? Like, the behavioral science behind it is legitimate. You know, so can you create a sense of urgency? Only have a short-term face-to-face course that, you know, forces people to either enroll now or not at all. You know, we're doing it with our masterclass strategic marketing course. We're only doing 2 this year for a reason, because we want to create demand and build urgency. It's not an accident.
And I think as well, to almost address the fact that I didn't even think to say multi-channel. We have been doing this for 6 years, and it is just such a given. If you are still just using one channel, it's not going to work. And the irony is, when I talk to clients that are just using one channel, they're typically the same clients that moan about having too many different platforms. Your employees are on all of those platforms, so you need to go out and be in front of them. Like, it's just such a given to me that I didn't even think to say it when you asked that question.
Yeah, but it's, you know, I can think of a client that you just did an email campaign for and got like, I think it was like 6 to 24% active users in a month. You can, but again, if you genuinely only have one channel, which is bullshit, because I just said there's people that you can use, and so there's always more channels than you think.
That client in particular, I thought you meant recently. I was like, who have I done an email campaign?
Don't know. Years ago now, that.
But they had a lot of testimonials that were baked into those emails. So that social proof piece. And there was a lot of the FOMO. There was a lot of the other stuff that was baked into that to make it work. And if we're being really realistic, it went from 6 to 24%. That's still only a quarter of your audience. Yeah, that was a great jump. What about the other 75%? That's why it needs to be multi-channeled.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only final thing, I'm just conscious we're at time, so I don't know if you actually have a hard stop at 5.
I don't. We can talk.
Because the last bit that I wanted to really talk about that sits within all of this campaign strategy stuff is the ADO model, right? So not only do we have to build out messaging that we know connects with our different personas, we need to think about which channels are going to reach them and how we're going to leverage those channels and the mediums to our best advantage. How are we going to design most effectively? What words are we going to use that are really going to positively disrupt and get their attention? Cool, great. Now let's think about different stages of awareness. Mm-hmm. Because again, not everyone knows everything about your learning function. In fact, quite the converse, based on our research at least. Most people don't entirely know what's available to them. They certainly don't understand the benefits or value of it. They're very much at the awareness stage, right?
So I've got 2 things to say here. Firstly, I would probably do ADL before I start thinking about any kind of tactical execution.
Yeah, I actually agree. Because that will guide some of that, won't it?
Yeah, because if you suddenly think, oh yeah, I want to do email, and then you realise, actually this person never looks at their email, then that's pointless. But secondly, this is a public service announcement. In the awareness stage of the ADL model, your audience is not thinking about learning. They are not. Stop telling me that they are reading up on your LMS or they're talking to their boss about their PDP. No, they are not. In that stage, in that very, very early stage, they are getting on with their day job. They are doing so much other stuff that's not related to learning. The only exception, which I've not come across, is if you are targeting an L&D practitioner. They are probably thinking about learning. Honestly, it's my biggest bugbear and pet peeve when I'm talking to people about ADL and they try to put learning in that early section.
That's like that. I mean, if you rephrase it into any other like context, it's like, okay, so I'm trying to get people aware of Coca-Cola. So in the awareness stage, they're thinking about Coca-Cola. It doesn't make any sense. Like, they don't know about your product yet, you know. So the whole idea of the ADL model is to help inform. Okay, so if one of your personas knows nothing about you and your learning offering, what do they need to know? You know, how do we, at awareness stage, how are we cutting through that noise, right? All we're trying to do is get attention. I'm going to say it for the 3rd time, positively disrupt. Now I'm not going to say it anymore. That's what we want to do, right? We want to be disruptive. We want to get people to notice, right? That's the emotional drivers, how we hook them in. That's why it's called a hook, right? We want to get them on the line. Cool, yeah, we want to get them to actually even be aware of anything. And again, in order to do that, you need to have a multi-channel approach. They need to see your stuff a lot, more often than you think, in order for any sort of object permanence to take place in their brains and for them to remember anything that you are, say, or do. Mm-hmm. So we got that awareness stage, then we move into interest, right? Okay, again, this is a really like idealistic model, right? Not everyone is in every stage, and like this is just a way of thinking to help you understand your marketing strategy better and really think about, okay, where are people at different stages within my organization? Some people know everything there is to know. I don't think they do really, but still.
You have your few star learners that just jump straight into desire and action because they just want to, and that's cool. And you'll have a lot of people that are stuck in attention, and it will be hard to move them ever from there. So
yeah. Absolutely, but not every, we are never going to achieve 100% engagement anyways. Like, that's just a reality, right? So if we're trying to then build interest, that relevancy piece is really important. That targeted messaging, you know, those use cases, like these are things that are really important. That context, that relevancy, like why is this of any benefit to me? What's in it for me? You've got their attention. How does it help them?
I always feel like in the interest stage, it's when you're turning that behavioural science dial up a notch, because that's when you're really going in for that emotional driver, that FOMO, that you're trying to dig deeper, because at this stage, they're kind of going, oh, what's that? You've got the 30 seconds to hook them in and actually get them involved. And I think that's where the behavioural science piece of marketing, that psychology piece, really, really comes into play.
Yeah, I think interest and desire, because I think desire as well, like when you're like really changing like a need to a want, or a I don't care to a want is like really substantial. And like really the true science of demand generation is precisely that. How do you make people want something that they didn't even know existed previously? That's demand generation. You know, how do we get people to want our learning? It's through your research and your personas and your messaging and your positioning. Are you getting the picture yet? You know, the campaigns piece, all of this is campaign strategy. It is not enough to just build out some tactics. You know, if you really want those tactics to work, this is the work that needs to be done, and this is the effort that needs to be put in, which is why campaigns should last longer, because they do take a lot of work to plan out properly. And you're not going to get that effect over a 2-week period.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, sorry, just formulating it in my head.
Should I play some lounge music? Do 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 do.
You tell?
I don't know. Are you
just having a sing-song? But I think it's really, really important to really consider each stage and realise that marketing has to happen the whole way through. So obviously we've just spoken there about the awareness, interest, desire, obvious marketing channel, like at the stages. It's obvious that we need to do marketing there. Action and loyalty need just as much attention when it comes to your marketing. Don't just think, oh, I've stopped at this point. Toodle pips, that's marketing over. Let's get into the other stuff. You need to continue that marketing. You need to stay front of mind. I actually don't think we've spoken about front of mind much in this episode, but it is critical if you want any of your learning initiatives to work, to stay front of mind. It's why brand marketing exists. It's why Coca-Cola do a Christmas advert. They don't do a Christmas advert to make you go and buy Coke. It's just reminding you that, hey, when you go and do your big Christmas shop, there's going to be some Coke there and you should probably buy it. It's keeping them it's keeping the brand front of mind.
Yeah, because you lose that market share. You know, even if the equity is in someone's mind, you still lose it if it's not refreshed. So, you know, I think, again, this is a big subject, and this is why we have a whole podcast dedicated to this. But, you know, I guess, just conscious we've been garbling for a while now. Essentially, we really do need to focus on messaging that connects emotionally. Right, let me rephrase this. If we don't do research, we can't do any of this shit. Yeah, or if we don't do research, we can't do any of this well. And that is the key takeaway here, is you can't build any of the strategy stuff that we've just talked about blindly. You can, but it won't work. And I've seen it fail in L&D functions. I've seen it fail in plenty of B2B organizations too. If you are just guessing what your audience want and need, if you're shoehorning your existing products into solutions for people, these are all problems that aren't going to be solved with some really cool new marketing campaign. You know, because the marketing ain't the problem. It is in a lot of cases. But chances are, if you rewind a few episodes, it's because you haven't really got a good, strong understanding of what your business is wanting, what your audience needs, and whether the products that you currently have are fitting that, and what needs to change there first before you can even do any of this bit.
Yeah. And I think this episode probably feels a little bit like we've gone like forward and then back a bit and then forward and back a bit. And I think that is just evidence that all of this, all of the research, all of that product market fit that we've already spoken about in this series, everything we've ever spoken about on the podcast has to come together. You can't do any of it in isolation. So even with us coming, no, actually, I'd probably do Adel first, so then you can really understand what products. This is things that we know and we do day in, day out. But it all lies on that foundation of that research piece and understanding your audience. And yes, you do jump about. It's not a straight process when you're developing a campaign. I can't give you a pretty campaign template that I say, yeah, this is exactly what I do in every step that I follow, because you have to think it through. And you might get down and go, I'm going to create a video, and then go, actually, is that relevant for this persona? And you jump back to your personas. That is the art of actually creating it. And it's the work that needs to go in, like you just said, Ash.
Yep. Totally. There is a lot of thought and planning that goes into these things, and it is a skill to be learned, but there's no way for it to be effective in your organization if you're just waving your finger around and hoping that you land on something. That's what we've been doing, and we know it doesn't work. So we kind of need to go back to the beginning here. And it's so much work. I appreciate that. But what else do we do? We can't just keep on doing what we're doing, a learning function that's genuinely putting a pause on every learning that they create so that they can understand what the context is of that. I think it's a good exercise. And if you explain that thoughtfully to your leadership, they should get why you're doing that.
Yeah. And then we go back to that engaging stakeholders episode.
Look at that. It's like a beautiful little loop. How lovely. Right. Well, as we've said, marketing isn't something that is a nice little bit that you hook on to learning. This mindset and this thinking should be woven into every aspect of your learning strategy. This isn't just campaigns. Marketing is so much more than learning campaigns. It is a way of doing and a way of thinking and a very human-centric approach, product-led approach. Get all that right, great, then campaigns will smash it. But, otherwise you're setting up your campaigns to fail because you haven't got the other components right to begin with.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, this has been a lovely episode. Sorry for being so weird again.
It's just your normal status quo now, isn't it?
Da, 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 da.
You're using it again.
Just doing the lounge music again. It's like lift music. No? No, I think on that note. Cool. We're really professional. I'm good at my job, I promise.
Yeah, she is.
All right, Han, thanks so much for your time.
See you later, guys. Bye.